Darci Diaries. I love that name. I think it's so cute. And it's exactly what I'm trying to do here. So, quick update. I'm still revising my manuscript called Summon, which is a gender-swapped King Arthur story. And I really love it. I'm having a good time. So I asked on Facebook and Twitter if anyone had any ideas for things that an unpublished, unagented writer could talk about. Like, what kinds of experiences do we have? One of my friends, Christine, asked her, I'm just going to read it. She said, maybe it's been talked about before, but I'm always interested in what makes an unpubbed writer choose to shelve a book. How do you decide to let it go versus revise or rewrite? For those of you who may not know or may be new to writing, to shelve or to trunk a novel, it just means you're going to put it away. It just means you're setting it aside, okay? To me, it doesn't mean anything more or less than that. We'll talk about that more in a minute. But to me, this is a great question because as an agented or contracted author with an editor and people like industry professionals at your disposal, you kind of have them to tell you whether or not something is worth your time, right? But as an unpublished, unagented author, you don't really have that. So a couple of points. First, it's going to be different for every writer. Like, beyond any other advice I or anyone else ever gives about writing, just know that it will always depend on the individual. Like, just because someone else shelves a manuscript for a certain reason doesn't mean you have to do the same for the same reason. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So for me, my personal experience, the only novel I have permanently trunked in my mind is my very first one. And the reasons for that is because I basically wrote my own sort of version of the Belgariad, which was my favorite my favorite epic fantasy series as a teenager. You can see them all right here. Beautiful books. And I worked and reworked it for over a year and then randomly asked on Twitter if someone would like to read a YA manuscript. And Marika Niekamp, who is an amazing author of This Is Where It Ends and the soon-to-come Before I Let Go. She's brilliant. Like, you should read her stuff. She read it for me and basically gave me the very harsh truth that it was full of old and overdone tropes and that it would not draw attention in this market, that it was not going to work. She was like, yeah, this needs a lot of work if you want to make it work. And I was like, I don't know if I want to make it work. Anyway, around that same time, I also submitted it to a query contest and got the same feedback from Lori M. Lee, her book is up there. It's up there. I don't know if you can see it. Anyway, author of Gaze of Thread and Stone series, who is also brilliant, and you should read her stuff. It was a hard truth for me as a new writer. You know, you get so excited and you want to jump in, and the truth was I wasn't ready. You know, it was a truth I needed to hear, and I sort of had to force myself to break out of that comfort zone. So I shelved that novel. I put it away. And told myself that I may never come back to it. Like, in the back of my mind, I was like, I really love those characters, and I really love that magic system, but I knew that I may never get to work with it again. Like, I told myself that. And to be honest, the more I learn about stories and the more I learn about what makes fantasy good, especially these days, the more I know that it's just not going to work, right? So that's my trunking story. With my next novel, I did push those boundaries, and I ended up querying it. And while I didn't get any offers, I did get a lot of full and partial requests and a lot of personalized feedback, which told me that I was headed in the right direction, right? So that was while the query trenches are never fun, and we'll probably address that in a different video, those markers of getting requests and getting feedback are really, really good. Like, that tells you that you're doing really well. Now, that second novel, I'm not working on it right now, but I haven't permanently shelved it. It's just kind of set aside, right? Because I have a lot of belief in that story, and I think that with the right direction it can do really well, so I'm sort of saving it for later, right? I may rewrite it someday. I may never touch it again. Who knows? Now, that's just one example. I also have a middle grade novel that may or may not ever see the light of day again. I have a number of YA fantasy novels that have not been revised, but I don't know if I'll ever use them or not. My biggest thing is that I don't want to give up completely on something until I have given it a chance, right? Until I've revised it to the point where I'm happy with it and my critique partners are happy with it, and I've at least either tried to query it or accepted that it's just not going to work, right? Like, those are my personal standards for whether or not I shelve something. And other than my very first one, which I didn't really know what I was doing, I feel like everything else that I have as far as the idea and the concept has a lot of potential. And so I'm not shelving any of that, right? Until I give it a chance to be revised and to be improved and to be polished, and then I'll see what I can do with it. But I just want to finish off by saying that just because you shelve something doesn't mean you're never going to see it again. You may shelve something, like I shelved mine based on plot, right? The plot was too tropey, too predictable, it didn't work. It would not sell, is the fact, right? It just wouldn't. But just because I shelved it doesn't mean I'm never going to use elements of it, right? Like, I'm actually using some of the characters from that in a new YA fantasy that I'm trying to sort of outline and work on right now. So give yourself the flexibility to set it aside while you work on something new, right? And refresh your creativity a little bit. Then you might end up using elements of it in, like, use those characters in a new world, or use that world in a new plot, or something like that. Like, anything you write is valuable. Even when you're cutting scenes, try not to throw anything away. So hopefully this has been helpful and informative and maybe educational to some of you. If you have any questions, you can comment below or find me on Twitter or Tumblr or Instagram or Facebook. And thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.